Hello, this is Scott McCorkle talking about the Causeway Coast and the many other art assets I created for Finn's Folktales. This is the rock bay that was created for it. The important thing, as usual, was optimizing it, so there's only 1,380 verts and 1,104 tries. This was managed by deleting any overlapping edges where possible and faces, and also at the bottom of the Causeway Coast rock bay, the faces didn't need to be there. That meant that there was a huge reduction in tries once they were deleted as well. Simple color map was created. First of all, I'll show the model in Sci3S Max. We had a reference system to see what sizes they would all be in relation to each other. For instance, if we look at the boat that I also made for them, we ensured that it was in direct proportion to the protagonist, which is meant to be represented by that square, and this grey box here is what size that this should be. And then from that, in relation to it, I was then able to create the Causeway Coast. And then they were all just put together to see how they would work. But this is the rock bay as usual. Once they were all UV mapped, they were initially split into little sections, but that increased the vert count, and also it meant that 3 or 4 color maps needed to be added, whereas if they're all attached as one big object, it only needed to be one color map, which is better for processing, etc. So this is the UV template for the model, as we can see here. The hexagons are like the top parts of the faces, and then anywhere in between these like square rectangles, those are the sides of the rocks. These were all just joined together and made it as neat as possible, so it was easy to find out where we were going when we coloured it in. Well, when I coloured it in, it was easier for myself. Just used Photoshop to colour it in. Made sure to make areas darker, and also used a faded brush tool to give it a sort of nice effect. When we drag it into Unity, you'll see that it's got a sort of faded, washed out look. The reason it had to be so dark is because we added a toon shader to it, and toon shaders make everything brighter than it normally is. Like for instance, if I remove it, you'll notice how dark they've become now. So then on to the Causeway Coast. The mesh for that is only 405 verts, 389 tries. This is due to the fact that it was just very huge and wasn't too hard to round off, etc. And as you can see, they're separate from each other. Again, this was done using 3ds Max and made sure that it was in same size in relation to each other. And then if we go into Photoshop, you'll see the final outcome. There's the main part you'll see, and these are the sides of the Causeway Coast. These are for the few rocks that are left over. If we hide this, you'll see that all of this around it is everything that isn't on the main part that you see. And that was that. Now if we move on to the boat, Again, this was made in say 3ds Max also. Just going to look for the mesh here. Which is only 488 verts and 568 tries. The reason it had to be so low was because it's a common obstacle in the game, which means it could pop up loads of times. So if there's 3 or 4 of them, then that would increase by 3 or 4 times. Again, all of the detail was made using a color map. There's no normal maps or anything, it's just baked in detail on the color map. The intricate details are made using Illustrator to make it more refined. Then several effects are created. If we press play, wait for it to load, you'll notice that when it's moving along, there's a sort of wave texture behind it. It was originally just a trail render, but then the programmers decided to make a script for it. It's a script that drags along a plane and affects the ripple effect of it, but you'll notice the material of it is actually a same material that was created using Photoshop. As we can see here, the blue background is just to make it stand out because it's white. Then onto the rocks. These are what Fionn throws and he then jumps onto. You'll notice that a particle effect pops up, and this is a splash effect. Again, just made using the animator, the particle editor, sorry. Then this wheel wasn't actually created by me, but it was my task to create a particle effect for it, for the ripples. As you'll notice, the sort of blowhole water, that's just roughly the same specs as the rock splash effect, except for it was released into a sort of cone shape. And then I created a custom texture for the back part of the wheel. If we look at the if we go into Photoshop, this is what it actually looks like. It looks very pixelated, but that's because it had to be made smaller. I think it's 512 by 512. But as you can see in the game, it's not very noticeable, especially when it's moving along. And this, in the blue screen, this is where you'll actually see it from, so it's quite far off. And it creates a nice effect as it drags along behind the wheel, as it's parented to the wheel. And that's what had to be done for the Finn's Folktales game. Thank you for listening.